Hello and welcome to Gaming. In this video I'm going to be testing two different solutions that will help you get badly painted miniatures back to their original plastic. Some of you will be familiar with Dettol antiseptic. Make sure it's the antiseptic one. Very smelly, very brown, but it's been a tried and tested faithful servant of the paint stripper for many a year now. The new kid on the block though is Clean Spirit by Bartolene, and if you're in the UK this is available in Wilkinson's and it's only £1.75 for quite a decent sized bottle. Doesn't smell as well, which is a bit of a bonus. Dettol, for a bottle this size, you're looking at around about anything from £4.50, £5. So already, price and odour, this boy is winning the race so far. How well it strips miniatures though, we'll find out. Two tubs. We've got some Dettol in this one. And inside I've placed some very, very dodgy old Lord of the Rings miniatures. There's some goblins and some wood elves. And in here we've got the Clean Spirit. Again, similar paint jobs. I think there's a Man of Gondor in there, and there's a couple of goblins and possibly an elf hiding in there as well. So it's around about 7 o'clock at night. I'm going to leave these to soak overnight, and then tomorrow morning I'm going to come back, get the rubber gloves on, get the toothbrushes out, and see how well they perform. So stay tuned, and we'll see you in a moment. Okay, so morning has broken and the miniatures have been soaking now for a good, probably about 15-16 hours. And here we are in a very handy sink setup. Now I would recommend that you don't do this in a very lovely sink at home because it can get a bit messy. If you haven't got access to this kind of sort of industrial, doesn't really matter sort of sink, then I'd probably get an old washing up bowl, take it out into the garden and do your business there. A few things you need. First of all, some gloves so that you've got your hands covered, because Dettol, if you've got any scratches, it's going to sting when it gets in there, plus it stinks. You do need a little bit of extra solution, some Dettol and the Clean Spirit, because what we're going to do is fill up the tubs, put a little bit into the tubs so that you actually clean the miniatures that have been soaking inside the same solution in a tub. And of course you will need some toothbrushes. These are very cheap. They were £1 from, well, Poundland I think it was, because these are basically useless once you've used them. And I don't just mean for brushing your teeth. Clearly they're useless for sort of cleaning miniatures further down the line. So get some that you can throw away, or some that you don't really need anymore. Don't steal them from your kids. That's just mean. Okay, so I'm going to start with the Dettol, because some of you will have seen Dettol working before, but I'll just give you a quick refresher. So all I'm going to do is pour some into one of these tubs like that. I'm going to get the gloves on, if I can open this packet. As I say, don't try and do this without gloves, because you'll be amazed how many scratches you might have on your skin. I've heard some people I've tried doing this with methylated spirits. That's even worse. I would probably wear rubber gloves for that, because methylated spirits going into a cut is going to sting like hell. Okay, gloves are on. Now to tackle the impenetrable. Oh no, that was fairly easy. Toothpaste packaging. One tip, definitely do not introduce water to miniatures that have been soaking in Dettol, because it will just turn into a really gunky mess. So let's get those out. Not a bad idea to actually put just a little bit of washing up liquid on the brush. And we're going to start giving these a little bit of a scrub. And I'm not sure if you can see that, but it is all starting to rub off quite nicely. I'll do one of the elves. And that's going back to the grey plastic very well, to be honest. Oh, another tip, this does get very splattery, so don't wear your best clothes to do this. Grab an old shirt, something you don't mind getting messed up, because you will come out of it with gunky splatters all over your clothing. It's worth going over them 2 or 3 times because you'll be amazed where some of the old paint sits, especially if it is, oops, a really, really old paint job. But that is relatively straightforward. See, that's come off pretty well. Now, if you introduce water into the mix, I will show you. What water does is it starts to create, basically starts to go really, really gunky and messy. I don't know if you can see that very well, but water does not go well with the Dettol solution. And what actually happens is you can get, I'm sure you can see there, you've got some really dodgy white pieces are now starting to appear on a miniature. They get quite sticky and quite gunky, so avoid water at all costs when it comes to Dettol. So I'm going to park that there. Again, just one last one. But Dettol really is, you know, absolutely spot on for the job. It does smell, but if you do it properly, don't introduce water like I have. I've just done that to show you why you shouldn't do it. Dettol, leave it to soak overnight. Scrub it inside a Dettol solution. It will work perfectly. If you've got a really old paint job that might have, you know, been sat there for a few years and it might be sat on metal, it might take a little while. I mean, it could even take a couple of goes before you completely scrub it back to nothing. But so far, Dettol works perfectly. And unless Clean Spirit is absolutely fantastic, I'm not even sure I'd recommend changing from Dettol. Now, there is a product in the UK which I've heard about called elbow grease, which a couple of people have mentioned, and I did try to find some. It's available in a DIY store called The Range for £1 a bottle, and Tesco apparently also stock it. I went to try and find some because I was keen to give it a go, but the lady in The Range said that they've currently got 5,000 units sat in their warehouse and it's on some kind of weird product recall. So I'm not even sure if it's still going to be available in the UK for much longer. If you're in the US, I'm aware that there's a product called Forest Green, which apparently does a similar job. So again, worth investigating. Anyway, clean brush. I'll put a little bit more washing up liquid onto it. And let's see how this boy does. So, same principle. Just brushing and brushing. And I'm hoping that this will work at least as well as Dettol. Let's try this Man of Gondor because he was coated in really bad black paint. Now that, if you can see, is actually working really, really well, to be fair. I might even go as far as to say it's coming off a lot easier than the Dettol. Again, these take a bit of scrubbing. You have to be really careful as well with specially completed miniatures that have been heavily glued on because you've got recesses behind the shield. You need to sort of give it a good all-over brush. Let's give this very dodgy elf a go. So I am having to scrub a little bit more than I do with Dettol. But it is coming off. It's not coming off as easily as Dettol. Let's get that base cleaned up. Talk amongst yourselves for a moment. Trying to get one of the goblins clean. Yeah, I mean, Clean Spirit, it is working. For the price difference, I mean, £1 for those, well, £1.75 for that large bottle, compared to what can be an expensive job with Dettol. Because, you know, a bottle of a similar size of Dettol is two or three times the cost of the Clean Spirit. And this actually is actually pretty good. that was coated in bad red and green paint, and it's actually come back to the plastic quite nicely. I mean, with a miniature like this, where, I mean, really this is just stripping it down so you can basically give it a quick paint job and have a quick game of Lord of the Rings. I'd say if you were looking for a decent character model and you wanted to get it right back to basics, because you were actually going to then replace the old paint with a decent new paint job, well, either of these products is going to do the job. I'd go as far to say as I think Clean Spirit might be my new favourite, simply because of the advantages of cost and the fact that there is no smell, no odour. That is a perfectly good way to clean a model. Let's give this other goblin a scribble. Just having a look through once more. A bit concerned about the blue on this model because it hasn't come off as well as it would have done with Dettol, but no, tell a lie, it's coming off perfectly well. I'd maybe recommend changing your toothbrush perhaps halfway through a decent session, because some of this colour might be being transferred from the head of the toothbrush now. But no, Clean Spirit is perfectly fine. So, there you go, 2 products put to the test. Both of them work perfectly well, and I think for stripping large numbers of armies, I'm probably going to swap to Clean Spirit now. If there's something that needs a second dose, that's probably when I'll introduce a second soaking in Dettol, just to make sure that every little piece comes off. But Clean Spirit, very good product. £1.75 from Wilkinson's for a 500ml bottle. That is a bargain. Okay, I'll clean up here and sum up in a moment. Stay tuned. Okay, so back at the lab. Upon closer inspection, now that I've dried them off a little bit, I'm actually finding that the Clean Spirit miniatures appear to have struggled a little bit with what looks like a white primer. Just trying to clean them up a little bit with a cocktail stick, but it's actually scraping off a little bit, but it's not 100% success, to be honest. It is still, however, very good. So I would probably recommend that actually, if you're going to use Clean Spirit, it might be worth having a firmer toothbrush, because the one I used was a child's toothbrush, which probably the bristles were a little bit too soft. Everything else, though, that doesn't have the white primer appears to be absolutely fine. If you can see that Man of Gondor okay, he's cleaned up really well, and there's a little bit of white shading on the back, so obviously the undercoat's still there. But if you were to prime that and start again, I think you're going to be relatively happy with the sort of the new canvas that you've got to work with. Similar thing for the elf. If you've got a delicate part of a miniature, don't scrub too hard, because swords and things can break off. But apart from the white residue that's been left, which hasn't actually dramatically affected the detail of the miniatures, Clean Spirit, yeah, I'm actually a fan of it. I think where I'm going to be going with Clean Spirit is, if it's a whole bunch of miniatures that, I mean, this one's really good. If it's a whole bunch of miniatures that, you know, you're not going to be too fussed about. Let's say you're playing with your kids, or you're just having you want a little force to have a pickup game with at home or in the garage. I don't see any problem with using Clean Spirit. I think it's performed absolutely fine for the price and for the lack of smell. I'd probably recommend taking a little bit more time. Maybe soak them for a bit longer. Perhaps try and give them a 24-hour soak rather than just, you know, the overnight one that I did. I don't think there's going to be any harm with dropping them in the solution and leaving them for 2 or 3 days. It doesn't appear to have affected the actual plastic. I can't vouch for resin at the moment, although I do know that Dettol is perfectly fine with resin. and I haven't seen anything with the Clean Spirit to suggest that it would affect resin at all. I think for metal, it should work perfectly fine as well. Maybe recommend leaving it in to soak a bit longer, but that to me is adequate. I think that's probably the best word I can say. It's an adequate solution. So if you don't want to spend lots of money on Dettol, because it can rack up, if you've got, you know, if you had 30 of these and another 20 odd miniatures, you probably would burn through anything from, you know, £18 to 20 odd pounds worth of Dettol. And then you get to the point where you think, well, I might as well spend a little bit more and get brand new miniatures. But I think Clean Spirit, for stripping back a real, you know, a good bunch of miniatures that you're not too bothered about, I think it works absolutely perfectly well. But like I say, slightly stronger toothbrush than the one I used, probably with firmer bristles. Maybe even take a few cocktail sticks into the cleaning area with you, and when you can see bits that are not coming off perfectly well, perhaps get the stick in and jab it while everything's still all nice and wet. But yeah, Clean Spirit, you've done all right. Let's have a look at the Dettol miniatures. Okay, so let's check out how Dettol has performed, and kind of flawless, to be honest. Pretty much everything's come off that elf, and it did actually come off really easily. There's a few little bits underneath, but they're only there because I probably didn't get to them with the bristles. Again, I think using a toothbrush with longer bristles that might be a bit firmer would get that off perfectly well. But that is absolutely perfect, to be fair. I can't fault that. I've always been a fan of the Dettol. It's just the smell that can be a bit annoying. The other thing as well, I think with Dettol, is you do need to let them dry for a day or so before you start trying to put anything else on them, just to make sure that they're absolutely 100% dry. Interestingly, that was one of the bases that had a really sort of horrible brown or green or something on it, and that's come back to perfection. If I can just compare that with the base from the Clean Spirit, as you can see, whatever that white was, it hasn't quite come off. So Dettol, it's 100%. There's just little bits here and there, and again, a better toothbrush, and we're going to be right back to pure plastic, I would say. But Dettol, you remain my personal choice. You are expensive, you are smelly, but if you're wanting to tidy up some, I mean, I bought this a little while ago on eBay, just proper nostalgia, because this was one of the first models I ever bought in my life. I think I bought this probably back in about 1988. Not this particular one, I haven't painted that, but this particular Blood Bowl logo, and I saw this on eBay, and I just thought, I've got to get him. So I'm going to strip him back. For a model like this, where it does have some sentimental value, or if you were, you know, if you had a character model that you were going to actually paint up to a very good standard and put that into your army, I'd say go with Dettol. Give it a good long soak, at least 16 hours, possibly even 24 hours. Do exactly what I did in the video. Don't introduce water. Clean toothbrush, a firmish one, a little bit of washing up liquid on the brush, and basically start attacking it, cleaning it in the Dettol solution itself. You're going to have a perfect miniature to play with. For the Clean Spirit, my recommendation is, you've got a whole bunch of figures that have been badly painted, again, usually because you've bought them very cheap on eBay. Use the Clean Spirit, get it down as good as you can. If there's a few choice models in there that you do want to have back to completely clear plastic, maybe drop those into a solution of Dettol as well. So use the Dettol sparingly, that way you're not going to bust your wallet. But Clean Spirit, fill your boots, give it a whirl. For me, it works really well. If I can track down the elbow grease product that I've heard about, then I will do, and I'll do a follow-up video using that. Just out of interest, that was a metal model I did. Very quick soak in Dettol. I think that was only about 7 or 8 hours. A Chaos Sorcerer. Again, normal kid's toothbrush. That is ready to prime and go again. Yes, there are parts of black in there where the primer hasn't quite come off, but there is no detail missing from that model whatsoever. And I think that is, again, another good example of why Dettol for me is still number one. But as I said, if I can find the elbow grease, I will do, and I'll let you know how that went. So for now, thank you for watching. I hope that's been useful, and stay tuned because there'll be more videos coming over the next few weeks and months.